What's up, everybody? I'm here with my boy Zach Even-Esh, and we're bringing you another powerful episode of the Business of Strength podcast, combined with the Strong Life podcast here. And Zach and I just got back off of a cool trip down to Sorinex, so we thought we'd do a little recap. Thanks for jumping on the podcast with me early in the morning on a Friday, Zach. Appreciate it, man.
I love it. I love to get the work done while the normal folks are still sleeping.
Yeah, man. So, it's 6 a.m. on a Friday. We got that holiday weekend coming up ahead of us. So, last weekend was cool. Zach, give everybody a little context. Like a year ago, Zach was running his certification down at Sorinex, and I decided to make the trip down and do a little talk on business for the group of people that were going through his certification program. And I got to meet Bert in person and some of the team down there. And what a great facility, what a great group of people, and awesome time. And then I came back that same summer with Zach, and we did the Sorinex last year too, and same
Oh,
thing.
wow. So this years ago, actually, because
Yeah, was that 2 years ago?
because this is our second Summer Strong. So Summer Strong is always in middle of May.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Because
right. That's right. That's
yeah,
right.
how time goes way
That's
too
right. The cert
fast.
was 2 years ago. The Summer Strong last year, and then Summer Strong this year. Wow, that's crazy. Forgot
Yeah,
about that.
it's almost 2 years ago. We did the certification in August, and
Yeah.
Pops's birthday is actually June 26th. I always remember that because that's my son's birthday.
Right. It
Yep.
was great. So this year we went, and a lot. I thought this year was awesome. I thought the speakers were really great.
Yep.
And we had an awesome time. So, Zach and we talked a lot when we were down there. We talked to a lot of other, there's gym owners, there's collegiate strength coaches, there's lots of military guys.
Yes.
I think there's a mix of just like some gym bros there. There's like a lot of dudes who just like to train,
That's right. Yep.
and guys that want, like, there's a couple, we know a couple guys that just have like ridiculous home gyms that just love the whole Sorinex vibe, just like
Yes.
coming and stuff like that. So it always reminds us, we always talk about how, like, the in-person events, as time has gone on, it seems like less and less people want to do in-person events. Everything's so easy, everything's so convenient in your house, everything's so cheap too. Like, you do a virtual class, a virtual lot, you have YouTube, you have all this
Sure.
stuff. And if you really want to seek out knowledge from people, you have to, you got to go see those people. Like, I always thought, like, I don't know, like when I got enamored by the writings and teachings, if you will, of like Louis Simmons, right?
Yes.
And I fell in love with like the whole idea of, West Side Barbell. It was like my mission to get there. And
Oh,
like,
I
you know,
remember. I remember speaking to Louis on the phone and saying, I'm not so good with geography, but this is also 20 years ago, saying, has anybody ever driven to your gym from New Jersey? And then I hear him screaming to Doris, anybody ever drive out here from New Jersey? And then they mentioned somebody from New York and how many hours it takes. And I start thinking to myself, well, if I could just I'll take a sick day and then I'll try, you know what I mean? I'm like
Yeah.
looking at how I would do that. And yeah, that the in-person, I heard Tony Robbins say this because I attended Unleash the Power Within
Mhm.
as a third-year teacher. So I think I was 25. And he said, human interaction, doing things in person, heightens and multiplies the human experience. And,
Sure.
he's still doing live events. But what's crazy is we've really gotten far away from it in the fitness industry. And if you want to make a live event happen, you have to blow people's minds. If we
Yeah.
look at, I'm very much known. I say, like, I like to do smaller, low hassle, high profit. I don't want this big extravagant thing, but
Yeah.
look at Grant Cardone's like 10x event. I mean, I don't know where he's in, but it's like you're surrounded by tens of thousands of people.
Yeah.
You don't have to go that way, but what Sorinex has done with their event, is Gunnar Peterson explained it to me. He's like, I try, when it comes to events, I got to pick and choose which ones I go to. But when it comes to an experience, he's like, I rarely miss. And I think Gunnar
Yeah.
missed, it was his wife's birthday.
Oh yeah.
I said, that's when you're excused,
Well, yeah, yeah. Otherwise, you're going to be in trouble, right? That's it.
right? You don't
I
want those
for a few
problems.
years in a row, we had an event, in the early, weeks of November every year for like 4 years. My wife's birthday is November 10th, and she was like every weekend. She was like, "Really? It's my birthday again." I was like, "I'm so sorry. I promise. I'll be a
But
really fancy dinner when we get back."
that's right. You're kicking off the birthday dinner with a gym event.
Yes, yes.
And
And a workout. So I
so,
think what's
yeah,
cool about it is that people don't run events at all. We've put on a couple big events at the gym. We do our
yes.
annual strongman event where we get a couple hundred people to come. I've done like mastermind events at the gym, but nothing to the magnitude of Sorinex. And I just want to give like Bert and his team some credit for the amount of work that goes into that. People that show up to Sorinex, they might not realize the enormity of an event like that and the stress that that holds. Like,
Oh yeah.
I know he wants to put on a great show, organizing all those speakers, making sure everybody shows up, right? Getting all the food ready. And his team they like cook all the food and everything
Yes, he always
themselves.
says that.
It's unbelievable. And
And they're not cooks or chefs.
no,
They're part of the actual team, whatever that role might be, whether they're in they call it like solution specialist.
yep. The
You got the
manufacturing team and everything in
yeah,
there. Yeah.
they
Really,
make all that food. It's mind blowing.
mind blowing. And so it takes a tremendous amount of effort and like, team giddy up to run an event like that. So, but I'm always inspired because like when I look in there, and I know the gym we have and the property we have in I'm like, man, I always think like, man, I could run an event like this one day. I always get fired up. It might not be that, but
Right.
like I see what's possible, and I get lots
I
of
agree.
ideas when I go to these events for running better events myself, right? Like we're running a mastermind in September in Arizona. It's like I'll take some clues. I'll steal some ideas from things like that to make that event fun. Swag
Which you
bags,
should
things
if
like
you're
that.
smart,
Exactly.
right? Any
Exactly.
smart business owner
He's really created a
is
community.
oh,
What a community. Strength is a community. It's funny when you go to stuff like any type of strength event, right? Like, have you ever been out to like the Arnold? You ever go to like the Arnold or like one of
I
the
spoke at the Arnold a long time ago, kind of in the beginning of it becoming more than bodybuilding. I spoke in
right?
2007 with Randy Couture before he fought for the UFC heavyweight title. And there was jujitsu and there was, a lot of other things going on outside of just bodybuilding, like how it started. And I'm sure that's like what Arnold started thinking, like, hey, what if we don't just do bodybuilding and now we do strongman and powerlifting? And then somebody was probably like, well, what about that? Now I think it's like they
No,
have like, ping
slap
pong,
competition,
everything.
ping
Yes.
pong. Yeah, yeah,
I mean, now they've gone really big. What's interesting about the Sorinex event is when you leave, you're like, I want to buy Sorinex equipment now.
yes.
And
Yeah.
so
Well, isn't that the master plan? Is the master plan?
yeah, it's and here's also like we speak about there's such a parallel to that. So we know as gym owners you have what is like how long will a member stay with you? Lifetime value, right?
Yes.
I've purchased my first squat rack from Bert in 2003. Now I'm not his typical, I don't want to say if I don't not his typical client. They really serve the collegiate sector,
Yeah.
the military sector, people who are buying almost the equipment in bulk for these massive facilities.
Yeah.
And then he's got the high-end private sector strength coach. They also have high schools, private high schools,
Yep.
but he kind of has those three sectors. And then the high-end private goes into strength coaches and also outdoorsmen. They
Yep.
are in that they do Sorinex Winter Strong,
Yeah.
which is really an interesting one also. And
That's like all hunting and outdoor
outdoorsmen.
stuff.
And
Yeah.
then sometimes you get somebody like me who my first time at Sorinex Outdoors, I'd never even fired a gun. So I was really out of my element.
That's the one I'm really waiting for the invite. I'm waiting for the golden ticket to show up. Come on, Bert, if you're
That
listening,
is a
send me the ticket.
that is the golden ticket
I,
invite,
I
and
get my
so
yeah,
refreshing. Just these
different
events.
community, right? So let's talk a little bit about the community of strength, right?
Yes,
And you know, every gym is like in a sense like a snowflake, right? If you go to Zach's gym, he's going to have his community, and there's going to be a vibe there. You come to Varsity
yes.
House, we have our community, and it's funny. You go to each. It's almost like you know, there's an allegiance to different strength companies, the Rogues, the Elite FTSs, the Sorinexes of the world, and stuff like that, right? And Sorinex attracts an amazing community, and because of the connection to the military and because of the connection to the outdoor world, you have such a mix there, you know, and you know you got guy and like half the strength coaches that do come are all big hunters too, you know, because I
Yes.
know because Bert's into it a lot, and but what a community a strength really is. You can get it, you know, when you can get some common ground, you get a bunch of people in a room, whether you're a power lifter, a bodybuilder, a an Olympic weightlifter, or an athlete. There's some commonality that happens around training and, you know, for lack of a better term, like suffering with other humans,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And you know, when you bond yourself through suffering, which the gym kind of naturally places upon people. And when you're used to training with training partners and in a team setting or as a group, it really does create this magical community that just like kind of springs up. And you could have, you know, it's funny because you go there and you have, you know, everything from, you know, the big giant powerlifters to the ripped, you know, athletes to, you know, people tatted up head to toe, sleeves all over, and everybody just working out, having a great time together. And where like in, you know, a not in normal settings, you might not even otherwise, you know, see each other or be with each other. So,
Correct.
you know, it seems like too, like each segment of strength, power lifters, bodybuilders, CrossFitters, they kind of all, it's like when you go to a high school, right? And you have like the different groups of kids pocketed together, right? These strength events kind of like are similar like that. And it's funny to kind of go around and poke around to see the different groups of people hanging out.
In within Sorinex.
Yeah, within
and,
Sorinex, exactly.
and it's training and that suffering together. We don't really look at the training we're going through as suffering, but like just that struggle together,
Yep.
it builds a bond. Then you can't wait to see people the next time. And so, if I parallel that to the underground strength gym, I always make sure that somebody who's new, I introduce him or her to the other athletes so they start building friendships immediately. Because the first few times coming to any gym, even if it's small, like your buddy John Carlo, G Strength Philly, he's got a
Yeah.
small space. I guarantee you that still people are nervous and intimidated.
Yes.
And if you could reduce those walls of intimidation from somebody in the beginning and they start feeling that family effect, now they want to come back. And then you'll hear people say, like, man, these workouts kick my ass, but I really love hanging out with Joe. So I'm willing to trade this
Yeah.
kicking so I could just talk with Joe because he makes me laugh so much. And I look back to the early days of the underground and everything was so focused on training athletes to win and win that I didn't really have a good grasp on building that family type
Sure.
environment until, like you said, we had a fundraiser, and one of the guys who was a hunter, he's actually like a game warden, brought some of the game that he had hunted. He had venison, and I can't remember what else, different cuts of beef. And so at the end of the fundraiser, one of the athletes took the grill and strapped it down to the back of his pickup truck, and we all hung out. And I was like, oh man, this is like the early days. I do a lot of that history of physical culture and training, the early days of the York Barbell
Yeah.
Strength
Yeah.
and Health Picnic. And so that's where Sorinex, that's where Richard Pops Soren came up with the idea because he actually grew up in Hillside,
Hmm.
New Jersey.
Yep.
And I believe he said he was, I don't even know if he was a teenager yet. He took a train to go to York, PA, and he witnessed like a York event. And I believe it was one of their York Strength and Health picnics where they were outside doing the weightlifting
That's
competition and
awesome.
the hand balancing and eating outside. And that's how Summer Strong began, as a celebration for Pops's birthday. And now, it's this massive event, but in their
Yeah.
early days, they were in like a strip plaza, as we call in New Jersey, and they had one of the units and the end unit. And so outside, they held a competition of all types: strongman training, early days CrossFit, because the
Mm.
first Summer Strong was um, pre 2010. So CrossFit was very big.
Hmm.
And I've known Bert for a long time. We actually were together. They brought all equipment to the 2009 CrossFit
Yep.
affiliate gathering. They brought the
They're the
rig.
ones who built the. I think they came up with the
They
original
came
rig
up with the
system.
rig.
Yeah.
Yep. So everything they brought was purchased by affiliates. They
Wow.
went home with an empty truck. And
That's
so
awesome.
it is awesome. And that being said, you and I ran into a lot of strength coaches,
Hmm.
as you wrote about, but think about the staying power Sorinex has had in all of these change. You and I have seen changes. Imagine how
Yeah.
many changes Pops has seen being in the industry. I believe
Like
they
50 some odd years.
started their business around when I was born. So
Yeah.
I'm 75. I think they may have started in 76.
Yep.
So that ability to pivot as the industry changes, and as there's new things in the field, like the military strength and conditioning career positions have exploded.
Explode it.
Yeah, some years ago, 10 years ago, not as much. Now it's exploded. So it's been really cool to see them evolve and change as needed, because if you don't change in business, as you know, that's like Joe DeSena always says, look at cities. A city will thrive because it evolves quickly with the times. He's like, but some towns refuse to evolve. They'll say, we always did it this way. And then you'll drive through that town and you'll see, like, every other store is vacant because they changed and they didn't want to allow a certain business in, or they kept
Yep.
saying, this is what we've always done. And Sorinex has evolved and changed. They were not this massive, um, explosion of ideas. They were kind of the low hassle, um, high profit. I don't know how much high profit back then, but they were a much smaller
Yeah.
company. Absolutely much smaller.
Yeah. It's great. I mean, and look, you know, you get a couple hundred people together, lifting weights, having a good time. You get some really great speakers. Some of them very emotional. The military guys have some really unbelievable stories and moving, like unbelievable. Like Rusty's, I don't know Rusty's
Rusty
last name.
Wit,
Rusty DeWitt.
Rusty Wit,
I mean,
amazing.
dude, I had like goosebumps, listening to his
I
stuff,
know.
and it
I
seemed like
told
he could have gone on for like 6 hours. He could have just kept going,
them.
and the next story after the next story was more unbelievable than the next. It was, so these guys have some crazy stuff, and then you fill that with, you got food. They do a great job. All the food's included. They wheel out a beer truck, right? They get everybody liquored up, and then the emotions start flowing, right? And that's kind of
Yeah.
what's cool about it, in a good way, right? Sometimes, look, I mean, in a field where everybody's like, supposed to be big and strong and tough, right? And all these people can lift big weights, and they're, collegiate strength coaches, or they're ex-military operators now, and stuff like that. At the end of the day, we're all humans, so it's nice to people let their guards down a little bit. They have 2 or 3 beers. We get into some really engaging conversation, and I think that's part of what makes it special, is that everybody, you're looking, and we're walking. I'm like, literally, me and you were leaving the one night, and we're like hugging everybody on the way out. It's like you all of a sudden you make like 10 new BFFs that weekend.
Leaving is very hard.
Yeah.
And these are I know you made that post on Instagram, sent out
Hmm.
an email, and kind of like the parallels to
Yeah, yeah.
the fitness industry. And I feel like you have the fitness industry, you have the strength industry, but from a business standpoint, what do people feel if they have to leave or they start thinking about leaving
Yeah.
Varsity House or the
Yep.
underground? Do they feel like they're going to be missed? And sometimes that's something hard for the owner to come to terms with.
Yeah.
Oh, if they want to leave, whatever. Well, we don't want people to leave. And when they leave, that's something that should bring about questions, to yourself and to your staff and say, hey, why do we think John Smith left? Why do we think Susie Smith left? Let's backtrack. What did the last month look like for them?
Yep.
What about the last 3 months? Did we notice they were missing training sessions and we didn't reach out? Did we not have systems in place where somebody disappears? Like for me, I use software Wodify. If you miss 2 weeks, an automatic email goes out checking in. We know life happens. Please keep me posted. And then on the flip side, you have a much larger operation than I do, but we still are connected. Your
Yeah.
boots are on the ground. You know who's coming through your doors. And you don't have to be coaching people to do that, but you want to know, who are these people? What's their story? And I actually sent my coaches a video that was shared with me. I think it might be older, but a guy was invited to speak to the Alabama football team. And the long story short of it, he talks about he's been working. It sounded like he was working for like a TV station, loving his job. He's married. They got 2 kids, and then his wife kind of springs this thing on him, saying, "Listen, there's all these orphans in Romania with special needs, and they've kind of been dismissed. They're like being warehoused essentially." And he's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! We already got everything going on here. Like we're married, we got the 2 kids, we got the great job." And she's like, "No, we need to do something about this." So he shares the story with the football players and this special needs boy that they adopt. He's wheelchair bound, but he becomes part of the basketball team, like a manager. And then when he graduates high school, this kid didn't wasn't able to talk much because of I think he may have had muscular dystrophy, so he couldn't talk much. But he taught all the kids sign language, and he taught them how like this sign. Did you see that video? Like "Love
I
You
think
Too,"
so. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and it was about that everybody is important and everybody has this special role. So the kid graduates, and the whole student body and everybody in the stands stands up and they put up that hand sign, "Love You Too." And I sent that video to my coaches and I said, in my early years of coaching, all I cared about was getting kids to win. Now I care about helping the kids win at life. So
Yeah.
my coaches are younger, they're in their 20s. So, they might also be thinking the way I did, win, win. Well, it's much more important to peel the layers and connect deeper with people. And that's something that Sorinex has done, not on purpose. I think it just happens when you genuinely care.
Yeah.
For me, the interesting relationship with them is Bert has known me since day one of getting into the field, because I'm buying my first squat rack from him
Yeah.
for a garage that needs a custom height. I need you. Hey, Bert, can you make that shorter? I'm in a garage. Can you drop the holes lower for the pull-up bar so kids don't blast their head through the roof, through the ceiling? And that story, although 20 years old, I remember it like
Yeah.
yesterday. And, maybe I'm a different person, but I have that nostalgia. I have that connection. It keeps me coming back
But they
because,
seem like they respect that quite a bit because I've heard 20 stories like that being there with guys like you who knew Pops, knew Bert, competed with Bert,
oh, yeah.
met Bert through college and then went on to become strength coaches and so forth. So he's a very look. I think at this point, obviously, Sorinex is a big company. They have a multi-million-dollar operation, right? They got a big team, right?
Yeah.
I think Bert's superpower is that he is a super connector and he's great at people. And look, every time I've been there, you introduced us together. We went out the one after the cert with him on his boat and stuff. We went out swimming and stuff like that. And he's always gone out of his way to make me feel special. We're not like buddies, and I don't hang out with Bert, but he always comments on stuff. He's always kept in contact with me,
Yeah.
whether it's stuff on Instagram, via social media. And when I see him in person, he knows me. He remembers the little antidotes. He always goes out of his way to come over and say
Yeah.
hello, and that's a special power, and I have to give you props too, bro. When I see you do that, honestly, you're fantastic with making people feel special, introducing people to each other, and it always humbles me because that's not something I'm intuitively good at. I tend to be a little bit more reclusive, believe it or not. Even though once you get me going, I can yap it up with the best of them. But Zach literally knows. Well, first of all, everybody. Like the reason I don't say hello to half the people because I don't know who they are. Zach knows everybody, and
Crazy.
he's the unofficial commissioner of all of strength and conditioning.
That was funny that you said that.
If we can elect a commissioner, you're it, dude. So, and but you do that really really well, and I see Bert doing the same thing. He's introducing people to each other. He's like, hey, you meet my friend, you know what I mean? And same thing that Zach does, and people love that. That's a special quality of a person. The ability to remember people and make them feel special and make them feel wanted, loved, and appreciated, right? And then B, to remember that it's almost like playing a game of memory. Remember when you were a kid and you flip over the little cards and you
That's
got
right.
like the little
Yeah.
the little yellow duck, and then you're trying to find the other little yellow duck, right? Being able to remember certain qualities about one person that might fit with qualities or needs of another person is a really really unique superpower, right? And being able to say, oh, my buddy Joe has a gym and he's doing this. Let me introduce you to this guy. You might want to talk to him, right? And it's like, there's this aha moment. It's like one, two, and then you connect together and you find there's another common ground. So, again, Bert does that really, really well. And so do you, my friend. And I really appreciate it when I hang out with you. I get to watch you in action.
It's I think when I've gone to the earlier summer strongs, and so they were very small. And I don't know if I could recall like being in a, we've all been in like circumstances where you're kind of like, man, I don't know anybody here, and it's like awkward.
Mhm,
Um, and so, you mentioned going to Arizona. It made me think of Joe Polish from Genius Network.
mhm.
Joe is known as like being a great connector. He puts you in touch with somebody that you can do something together. And a couple of years ago, Kelly and Juliet Starrett put me in touch with, I think, like a book designer or editor. I was like, oh, thank you so much. And Juliet's like, she's like, when our friends win, we're winning. And
It's
so
amazing.
there's you know, there's enough pieces of the pie for everybody. And also now at Summer Strong, it's so big. When I see somebody standing alone, I just introduce myself to them because I know it's not really a place meant to just be alone. And ironically, I've got met somebody there by just walking up, introducing myself, and we've been very close friends. We're on the phone. We just spoke yesterday. We're on the phone at least once a week, and it was Jesse Ackerman, and at the
Oh
time
yeah.
he was working with the Falcons, so he was an
Yep.
NFL strength coach, and I just saw him standing alone, so I just walked up and introduced myself to him, and we got going, and we've been hamming it up ever since. But think about how that would parallel and how we would implement that in a gym. You
Right.
want to make sure that on somebody's first day, they start um,
Right. We
being
we always say never let anybody stand alone. If they stand
yes,
in there looking alone and looking awkward, they're feeling 10 times as awkward.
100%. And so these quote unquote soft skills, Brett
Yeah.
Bartholomew talks about this in the art of coaching is how to get people to just feel good about these things. And I do it even at my high school
Yeah.
where we'll have a group that's quite established. Let's say it's like football and wrestling, and maybe another team is in, and then all of a sudden out of the blue somebody kind of comes in, and the kid doesn't like shake his hand, introduce himself to you. So we're like, okay, you got to do the game. We make it a little bit fun. It's a little bit nerve wracking for them, but we're like, we come up with like something dumb for them. We're like, all right, what's the questions? We obviously need your name, your sport, what grade you're in, and then we let like the crowd of kids come up with something. They're like, what's your favorite, animal? And then somebody will be like, dogs, and then everybody's like, boring, So one kid was like, penguins are my favorite animal. So now like we couldn't remember his name out of the gate. So
We
we were
call him
like,
Penguin.
Penguin Man, Penguin Man. But the key is I've seen how once you make people feel comfortable,
Yeah,
their progress skyrockets
for sure.
because now they want to come back. And this could be really for any business. I pay attention to things. I know you do the same. You're as an entrepreneur, you're out to eat and you're sitting down. You're like, wow, nobody's brought us water, nobody's offered us a drink, and so you don't have a lot of time to get people to feel
Yeah,
good about being in a certain place. And so as gym owners, you have to do that. And I think in my business, being a smaller operation, that's what's helped me be consistent with income and never
yeah,
need to take out a loan and be in debt and be like, oh, I'm breaking even. I've never been that way because um, our athletes stay with us for the most part for years and years
hmm
and years. Sometimes we have a very small number that are the kind of come and go
sure.
type athlete, but you have to get people really feeling good and loving to go to your place. And then you're not worried about just like this, I don't want to say the marketing machine ever gets to be turned off,
Yeah,
but you're not always like, I need 50 clients, 40
yes.
clients. I wouldn't be able to handle 40 to
It's a
50 new
lot. It's a
clients.
lot. When you get to like our situation, you have, over 500 members. And, when you think about gym numbers, not to get too specific and make this about the gym, like a gym podcast, but, attrition is about 5% average nationally, internationally, right? So we try to keep it under 4%. But if you just use the math, 4% of 500 is 20 clients a month are going to leave the gym. So at the end of the year, right, you're going to lose 240 clients. That's a fact. And most gym owners have no clue about that number.
Yeah.
Right. And we're no matter how good you are, even if you get it down to 3%, right? If you got 500 people, 3% of that is still going to be 15 clients a month. You're still going to lose 100 and, 160,
Human
150,
nature.
180 clients. Yes, it's just human nature that you're going to swirl those people out. So the bigger the number, the more customer service you need, the more systems you have. Because with one coach like yourself in a small business, and this is why, like, I think some of the attrition numbers, and again, when you're running events or you're doing something like Sorinex is doing, numbers matter. Because if that event had twice as many people, it wouldn't be the same, right? Because there'd be too many
It has
people.
grown
It's grown.
exponentially, though.
It's
It
grown.
used to
Oh, I'm sure.
be, I don't know what those first few were. And I used to see it on YouTube. And I was like, man, I got to get down there.
Literally
It was
just look like a
doing
backyard barbecue.
exactly. It was just right on the side of their building or out front in the parking lot. And that's what they did.
That's awesome.
Barbecue. And then the
Well,
numbers just grew. They changed locations, from being outside of it wasn't even a warehouse, their unit. And then it went to renting space inside of like a sport bubble, those
hmm
places
hmm
that rent turf and things
Yep.
like that. And then they were inside University of South Carolina, and then they purchased the new Sorinex location. So you grow, and in life, I heard this great quote by Dan Sullivan from
hmm
Strategic Coach. This is applicable to everything you do. He said, the ultimate way to stress yourself out is to remain stagnant, to not grow. And so you should always be trying to grow on your own. Like,
hmm
what new, am I reading a new book? Am I working on something new? And my buddy Jesse, we were on the phone yesterday, and he's working on a book, and he mentioned Stephen Pressfield. And I'm like, what's crazy is it seems like Steve has written more books the past few years than he has his whole life. Like, he's actually doing more. And I think he's in his late 60s, early 70s. And so, most people equate being
hmm
that age to like, I'm not doing anything. Well,
I have
as
friends who are a little older than me. And the constant narrative of I'm old, I'm too old for this stuff was like, dude,
it's
you're in your
crazy
late
talk.
40s. Like, what are you talking about? Like,
Yeah,
you got
that to me is
you got half
crazy.
your life still left.
You do. And maybe it's who do you surround yourself with? Because
Yeah,
if you surround yourself with it, and look, I work in a school, full-time high school strength coach.
yeah,
It's interesting. The kids who struggle with consistency and effort and a great attitude, guess what their friends do?
the
Same.
same. Yeah,
And
no,
so they like acquire or they adopt one another's poor habits. And then is it Jim Rohn? He's like, what is it like? Eagles.
yeah. Eagles soar with eagles. They don't fly with ducks or something like that. It's not.
That's right.
Yeah,
I mean, it doesn't sound like anything mind boggling, but some people need to hear, listen,
yeah,
you need new friends. You need to get
yes,
out of
yes,
that circle. You need to, and sometimes I tell people, you may not be able to surround yourself with the people in person. We'll take advantage of the virtual, start listening to better podcasts.
yeah,
Everything that's part of your environment, I call it like you're feeding yourself, you're feeding
yep,
your brain, you're feeding your body. When I see an athlete who's overweight and carrying a lot of fat, it's oftentimes mom and dad are the same. And that's when
yes,
I have to speak and say, listen, this has to be a team effort.
correct.
Johnny Jr. is not going to make progress until everybody in the house starts getting on the same page because he's trying to go, the horse is going one way, but the carriage is getting pulled the other way.
Yeah,
So you got to get on the same page. And with Sorinex, I've known them for a long time. So you see team members coming and going. Well, it's pretty evident to me, like if you're going to work with Sorinex, you need to be on a mission. You need to
yes.
believe in the direction that their company's going in. And I look at that as a dad. What is, I know you do the team meetings with the family.
Hmm.
It, I'm telling you, being around kids, since being a teacher since 98, coaching since I started coaching recreation wrestling in the winter of 93.
Wow.
You see, when you're around people, you start seeing habits, you start seeing how it's connected, and you start understanding the influence of why things happen the way they do. And it's cool to see how Sorinex went kind of, they were growing slow, steady, and then they just went to this like phase of like, boom, we're gonna really go big. That's something I wanted to ask Bert about. Like, hey, when did what was this turning point moment in your head
So
when you said,
I actually spoke to him a little bit about
oh,
that,
I want
right?
to hear it? Yeah.
And he said it was a mindset. He's like, honestly,
Mind
it
shift.
was a mind shift. He's like, we just started believing in our products. We found our tribe. We found the people who believed in our products,
Right.
and we dove all in. And he went out of his way to level up his network, right?
Yes.
And level up the connections with high level collegiate strength coaches, high level military, and that was in a sense purposely done, but in the
Yes.
sense that's where he felt most comfortable and loved anyway because he was a high level athlete himself. He's a huge hunter. His circle of
Correct.
friends are all big hunters, and then you look at the connections. Like I actually spoke yesterday about this on another podcast that's coming out in a few weeks and probably next week also. But like, if you want to get somewhere that you're not currently at, right? Or you aspire to be like, let's say you're listening to this and you're like, man, I'd love to own a gym like Varsity House one day, or I want to be a coach like Zach one day, and I want to be, a world class, strength and conditioning coach like Zach one day. The best thing you could do
Thank you,
is
Joe.
well, the best thing that you could do is come to Varsity House and
That's right.
pick up the phone and call them. Say, hey, can I come and sit in one day and see things in action, or call Zach up? Like, he's just a man. At the end of the day, he's just another human, right? And like, people are afraid sometimes to pick up the phone, but like you said, like we said earlier, it's like, I called up Louis Simmons, and that's when Doris used to, hello. I was like, yeah, my name, I'm Joe Riccio. I'm from New Jersey. I want to come out. I want to come out with another friend, Joe from Jersey, and Laura's like, hey, Louie, there's two Joes from Jersey want to come out to the gym. He's like, tell them to come on out. Can
That
they
was
lift? He goes,
amazing.
can they lift weights?
Yeah. His
I
his like open door policy
my
was
point is that
crazy.
most people, like anybody who ever calls me, if you're a young coach and you call the gym and you want to come to the gym, I don't think we've ever said no to anybody. It's like I'm happy to share my experiences with other people. But my point is that if you want to get somewhere that you're not currently at, you have to immerse yourself in that. You have to find the people. It's like almost like playing a game of connect the dots. Okay, my goal is to own a gym like Varsity House one day. I realize that that's probably not going to happen tomorrow, but
Mhm.
what are who are the people and processes and skills that I have to surround myself with to get
Yes.
to that level? And that's where I think like you go to a thing like Summer Strong, it's not just about lifting weights, and it's about connecting with other people. So, I'm good at extracting connections out of just about anything. So when I go there, I purposely meet, introduce, stay connected with people that I think would be great influential people for me and that I want to be. Like I see like Michael Easter. Like Michael Easter, if you don't know who he is, if you're listening to this, he wrote the book
Comfort
Comfort
crisis.
Crisis, right? And I started I read it like all week, so I'm like halfway through it, and so far it's great, right? And I already practice and understand a lot of, because the writing is basically like comfort is the enemy of progress, right? Is the
Yep.
idea of his book. And he told an amazing story of like hunting in the Yukon for a month with barely any food and grizzly bears everywhere and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
he's like it was miserable every single day, miserable,
Bored out of his
bored,
mind, like
freezing
trying to
cold.
entertain himself reading the
Yes.
back of a protein
Bored,
bar.
freezing cold, and hungry, right? And like, I went out of my way to go introduce myself to him because I thought what he was doing was so cool. I connected with him immediately on Instagram. I shared some of his stuff. I bought his books for my team, right?
Oh,
And
smart.
and it's like, not with any ulterior motive, just that I was motivated by his talk. I think his book has great preference in life, right? That if you want to accomplish more, you have to throw yourself on the fire, right? Whether and that you should there should I always look at things in like there's five like major components to life, right? Fitness, finances, your friends and family, your personal faculties, those are your skills and your mental health and abilities,
Mm,
right? And the fun shit that you do, the experiences that you have in
that's
life. And I
awesome.
call
I
it the
love
five
that.
F's, right?
That's awesome. Five
And
F's.
the five F's. And I actually got that from Jay Ferrugia. Shout out to Jay Ferrugia. He was the one who
Nice.
told me that was about 7, 8 years ago, right? And I took that to heart, right? So when you think about that and you think about like Michael Eisner's book, and the whole point we started this conversation talking about leveling up and getting to that level, is like, man, I would love to, you know, do some of the things that he's done. I'd like to meet some of the people he's meet, because he's a journalist, so he's surrounded himself with all these other high performers and people that are like on the edge of what most people would call insanity, right? Like doing this wild
Yes.
stuff, diving to the bottom of oceans, a guy he was telling me about a guy he was interviewing who like swam, is his goal is to row a boat across the Atlantic Ocean. It's like just wild shit. Like, why would you ever do that?
Two of my buddies did it. They were part of like a small group. I think it was four of them.
And they
And
rowed across the Atlantic.
yeah, it was
Oh
like
my
32
god.
days. And
Oh
I'm
my
and like I
god.
said earlier, my geography's not good and I didn't like put it all together. I'm like, oh, they're gonna be out in the ocean for like 2, 3, 4 days. And these guys, just thinking of these two guys gives me goosebumps. Like I want to get better when I mention their name.
Yeah.
That's, your friends. Do your friends inspire you to want to come back better, which is very, very powerful. And if you could learn that at a younger age, or if
Yeah.
you're a parent listening and you can teach that to your kids. And look, my kids are a little older than yours. This is why sometimes parents want their kids to go to a private school, because they feel like they will be in this environment that will shape those kids forever. And it's true.
Yeah.
Um, You know,
The level, and I don't want to say that like I hate to say it like the class of people goes up, but again, you narrow the pool when you go to private school of a certain type of people with a certain socioeconomic ability and so forth, just
yeah.
because of the cost of it, right? So in some parents' minds, like I'm for lack of a better term, I'm weeding out the bottom 10% of people who might not have the network
Hmm.
that we think is going to help in any way, shape, or form. And they're not entirely wrong. They're not, but again, I don't want to hate on
It's
the public school, but they're not
right. It's
entirely wrong.
true. I mean, it's true. And then of course you have your outliers. Somebody be like, "Hey, my son or daughter knows somebody. They went to this private school, and this kid did all these bad things."
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
that's
There's
everywhere.
always
But like you're
10%, right? On the bell curve, on either side of the
there's
bell curve.
there's always the outlier. And yeah, you're right. Bert leveled up his friends because early days Summer Strong was strength coaches,
Yes.
period, end of story, book closed. And then they started working with guys in the military, which was it's very inspiring, and it's actually healthy for us as strength coaches to not just be in that box
Yes.
where you don't know anybody who's outside of the strength and conditioning world. It's healthy to have conversations and friends who are not the same as you. And look, I love training. You and I still talk about training a
Always.
lot. Yeah, we really always do. But it's good to have that well-roundedness. Something I didn't know about you. Like, I'm like, Joe, I did not know you go hunting
Yeah.
on the regular. And having these conversations now, it inspires me. I'm like, all right, I got to go
We're
shooting more.
going. We're going. We're going this fall. I'm taking you out bow hunting. We're gonna go.
I
We're gonna go
cannot
shoot some
wait.
stuff.
And what about
Yeah.
our guy Anthony, coach, our boy
Oh,
Tony?
Looney,
Yeah, who we
Tony Two
met.
Fisting.
Yeah, what a great guy
Tony's a great guy. Anthony
who
Anthony Looney. Shout out to Anthony Looney.
Yep. Who's a strength coach and a baseball coach,
Yep.
husband,
In
father,
Charlotte. Yep.
and he's very busy. He's got, I think, two kids younger,
Hmm.
and so those are hard times to get
Yeah.
away, as you know. But you could tell, like, he understands that if he gets himself on the regular into some sort of an event, he'll go to Summer Strong. He came to the SSPC cert. He's
Yep.
coming up to New Jersey for your business
He's coming
event.
to see me.
He understands that you gotta get out of your normal comfort zone. And
Yes.
a couple of years back, when I was doing a podcast with Spartan, one of the hosts was Colonel Nye, a retired colonel in the Army. And he said, comfort is a cage, it will cage you in. He's like, you're happy where you are, everything is so good. He's like, but what you're actually doing is it just starts to build a cage around you.
It's a great analogy.
A very great analogy. And in like, even I look at this for our athletes. Sometimes you get an athlete who falls in love with training, but needs to really put more effort into the sport.
Hmm.
But because the sport is kind of more emotional, you have to deal with loss and the ups and downs. They don't want to do it.
Hmm.
And then they become so strong with the weights and in the gym, but it doesn't have a carryover to the sport because they
Yeah.
didn't marry it with the skill and the emotional aspect. And so going to these events for me, sometimes I'm saying to myself, well, I got this going on, I got that going on. You start
Hmm.
feeding yourself a story as to why you shouldn't leave.
Sure.
But the truth is, we have to leave if we want to grow and be better serving the community, family, whatever's, wherever you are in this life. You need to get out of your current environment every couple of months, and you need to kind of push yourself so you could come back better. Because if you're always in that same place doing the same thing, you're just, yeah, I get it. Some people are creatures of habit, but that facing the discomfort is an opportunity to grow. Then you
Yeah,
come
and
back
and,
better.
and you have to like, again, like as you've gotten older and I've gotten older, it's a natural attrition that your friend pool is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller too,
Yep.
right? And you really start to get to a point where you start to gravitate towards people who are pushing them. Like if you're the type of person who pushes your own comfort zone, values training, values adventure, values, mindset change, values financial growth and personal growth and a lot of factors, you start to gravitate towards that. If you roll with bums and you roll with a bunch of guys or girls who are kind of stuck in the town, man, they're old townies, they still go to the local bar, they hang out, you're that's what you're gonna do, right?
And you will not get better.
And you
You
will
will
not
be the
get better,
same.
you know
Look
and,
back 10 years, you're the same today.
and give
And
give Anthony some credit, right? Because I remember I spoke to Anthony on the phone a few months ago. He had done like a virtual event that we did, and basically the conversation was like, hey man, like I want to take my business to the next level, and I'm really just not sure what I'm supposed to do next because I'm training a lot. I
nice.
have all these certifications. I'm a great coach, right? And I love coaching. He's like, I'm just not quite sure what I'm supposed to do next. I said, well, let's come up and see me. You gotta see it because when you see it, again, like I said to you, like he's just a man. I'm just a man. I'm just a meathead. I'm just a Joe from Jersey. I'm just another guy who loved training, opened up a gym and started it, but I've navigated some
What was your
successes and some
turning point,
failures.
Joe? Where you
Uh
guys were like, we're gonna get
Pat
this.
Rigsby. Pat Rigsby. Going to see Pat in 2011. Pat, when same exactly what we're talking about. It was our second year with Dan, so I'm 4 years in business now. I started in '06, so I went '06, '07, and '08 by myself, right?
Mhm.
And like most people, I just worked 7 days a week. I took 10 days off in 3 years, and I went to work on Christmas morning 2 years because I had a bunch of kids, a couple Jewish kids that weren't celebrating Christmas and wanted to work out. And, it was like,
Yep.
75, $100 for the hour. I'm like, look, I'm going to go make $300,
Yeah.
this morning and I'll be back before 10, and it's like,
Yep.
that pays for Christmas presents and stuff. Right. So, and then when I partnered with Dan in '09, we were busier than ever. Summer '09, first year in our second facility, which was about 5,000 square feet. Busy, busy, busy. Almost everybody were football players and fall sport athletes. And then, come August, we're waving goodbye to everybody as they're going to camp. And Dan and I are looking at each other with like literally like pale white faces of terror. Cause like we're like, how the hell are we going to pay the bills in a month? Like we don't have any more money
Yeah.
coming in. We didn't have a plan or nothing, right? We struggle, vapor trails till like, November, mid-November. We started getting some like winter sports, spring sport athletes coming in, right?
Yep.
Barely made it, busiest year ever, 2011, right? We're 2010, we're crushing it. 100 kids that summer in our summer program, 100 kids. And we get to August again, waving everybody out the door. And the drop off was like, 80% of our athletes. And again, we barely made it to the fall. That's when we started our highlight company. I don't know if you remember, we used to have like a video production company that did
I
like
think I
recruiting videos
remember.
and varsity highlights,
Yeah.
right? And
Wow.
that was just out of desperation. We had to find some way to make a couple bucks. And I was out filming videos myself. I don't know anything about film, like filming high school football games,
Holy.
to make a couple bucks. And we got a couple adult clients. So we went out to see Pat. And this is why you have to get out of your facility. You must surround yourself. I knew Pat was the only like it was Pat and Ryan Lee were like two of the original gym business
Right.
gurus,
But
right?
Ryan Lee stepped out of that. And
He
Pat
did,
was his, he
kind of
put Pat on like
successor.
the business advisory for the
Correct.
fitness business.
So we went out. So I put it on our credit card, my credit card. We didn't even have a company credit card at that time, right? We flew out to Louisville. Me and Dan stayed in a shit hotel, stayed in a budget hotel, like it had burns in the comforters and stuff like that.
Stayed in the
And
crackhead
it was a
hotel.
budget in, right? And it was on the really shitty side of Louisville. And we get to Louisville, and Pat's like, right? And he's got that thick Kentucky accent. He's like,
Yes.
we get up there and we give him our spiel. It's a whole room full of gym owners, right? And everybody, it's a big sales conference. So everybody's selling their gym. And he gets to me and Dan, and we sell basically, it was sounding like we had two different gyms, right? And we were good at selling, but we didn't have a system. And he
Hmm.
said, well, he's like, let me tell me more about your gym, right? I said, all right, we train athletes, we do this, we do that. And he's like, let me get this straight, Joe. He's like, you train athletes from 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon till 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. I said, yes, sir. He said, so you got 5, 6 hours a day that you can make money. I said, yes, sir. He said, when you signed the lease on your building, it was 24 hours, right? And every day, 365 days a year. I said, yes, sir. He's like, well, I don't know a lot of, maybe I don't know a lot about business, but that just sounds like a really bad business model. He says, right. And he said, that sounds like, he's like, if you want to make some money, he's like, you're going to have to do something with the rest of that day. He's like, you
Yep.
got to find a way to make some money. So he gave me the idea for our 6 week transformation, which I then took and turned into, our most lucrative product, which has made us, millions of dollars. And it's, the rest is kind of history. We started the adult training. It just opened our eyes to business. I met another guy who had like 5 gyms, was doing multiples of millions. We met a dude who had similar background, was all sports performance, started a gen pop, built a great set of gyms. So I saw the next level. And Dan and I, we're not dummies, right? We're a little ignorant sometimes, right? We're still meatheads, but we're flying home and we're like, dude, they're just regular people. We can do this. Like I saw it. Like if that guy
Yes.
can do it, we can do it. You know what I mean? And
Mindset.
yeah, and it was really just the mindset. So and once we believed that we could do. Once I saw it, and I almost felt like I could touch it, and that's why, like, if you want to make more money, surround yourself with some people who make more money than you, and figure out and listen. Shut up and
Yeah,
listen.
because then you start feeling awkward. Like, why am I not on that level?
Yes. Yeah, I
And
got a I
in
got a guy Pete that's in our gym. And Pete's our business partner in the building and property. And Pete's a super successful guy, right? And he comes from a regular family. Dad was a cop. Mom worked as an admin, was like a secretary and stuff like that.
yeah,
Had like
interesting.
12 brothers and sisters, right? Right. Like a huge Irish Catholic family, right? And Pete's just a regular guy. I mean, the most regular guy ever. He's a great dad, a great husband. He's a philanthropist. He's such a nice person. He's done so much for us. And like if you see Pete, it's t-shirt and jeans. He's just like a regular guy. And this guy knows how to make it rain. But he's surrounded himself, with amazing people, and he's created an unbelievable business, right? And like when I go out with Pete, and like we've gone fishing, we've taken vacations together and stuff like that. It really is the simplicity of his mindset that's been so successful. He never doubts himself. He never thinks twice about decisions. I make it and I go, and if it's the wrong one, I don't even care. I just move on to the next one. Where a lot of people, they get so focused on, like, if they make a bad choice or they make the wrong choice, that just crushes them and they can't get their mindset out of that gutter.
Yes.
And Pete's just like, no way, I'm moving. I was like,
You
I'm
have
on a
to
I'm on a rocket
rebound.
ship,
Yeah. I tell
and
that to athletes. I go, listen, you play baseball, softball, wrestling, somebody scores on you or you miss a play. You don't have hours or days to deliberate on this thing. You have to rebound within seconds.
yeah,
And I remember that was my mistake when I was a young athlete. Something
same.
would happen and I'd just go down the dumps. This conversation, or this, like what you were saying about Pete, remind me of, like, we went out to dinner the night before with Kyle Casillas and
Yeah, Kyle's
Ray
the man.
Zingler.
Yeah,
Yeah, so Ray in Georgia, he knows exactly what he wants. He wants that small gym that's on his property. He's very successful with it. He knows what he wants with his family. He understands, like, who's going to be a great coach. When he's not coaching, he has other coaches training adults, and he's been in himself, has invested in coaches so he
yeah.
could learn the business side of things. That's just what, success leaves clues. That's what successful people do. They
I don't know
surround
anybody
themselves
who's
with
not. I don't
others.
know who anybody's done. Pete's got a business coach. My business coach has a business coach. I've been in Dan Sullivan's group. I've been in Donald Miller's marketing group. I've been
Yep.
in, I mean, I've spent literally over the 20 years that I've been doing this, I've spent, a couple hundred grand easily on
Somebody
education.
just texted me that. I think I deleted the message so my wife wouldn't see that I said I invested several hundred thousand. But
She's
so
like,
this
that's our
guy
kid's
reached out.
college.
But I started thinking of it. I was like, okay. I remember going to the Genius Network weekend,
Mm,
$10,000. I was on the Dan Kennedy newsletters for several years, and every year I kept bumping up until I was on platinum. That was like $700 a month.
That's real
Now I'm
money.
in.
People think about that. Like most, I can't get a gym owner to come pay $300 for a full 2-day workshop at Varsity House, where we're like literally going to give them a blueprint book of all of our systems and parade them around the gym and
I
show them
Here's
everything. And it's
my
like 350 bucks. You're like, oh, it's a
my
lot.
philosophy
I don't know if I
behind
can
that.
take the day off.
Right. And
That's
that's why
exactly, you're
you
exactly
should.
the person who needs this.
Do you know a strategic coach? I know they've
Yeah.
I don't know if they put set up offices in New York City and Philly,
Hmm.
but in the beginning I know they purposely did not, because they felt people would end up commuting. They wanted people, they're like, you have to step away
Yes.
from your work. And strategic coach is a 1-day event 4 times a year, so it's once a quarter.
Hmm.
Um, but here's what's happened, Joe, since I've been in strategic coach. I'd say since 2011, 2010, 2012, all this information, you give it away so freely. I honestly feel just people don't respect information anymore, because they're
Yeah.
like, I'll just look it up on YouTube, or I'll just watch Instagram. And you even said it to me. Yeah, he said, Zach, listen, I don't think certifications are really that hot right now. Well, somebody like our friend Anthony, he does not need another certification.
No.
He needs business immersion. But there's a lot of coaches out there who need more knowledge.
They need a mentor, right? There's a difference between a
Yes.
certification and a mentor, right? There's a
Oh,
difference
yeah.
between going to a business like workshop mastermind and hiring a mentor business coach, right? There's a big difference, right? And it's like, the difference is it's kind of look at a training. Anybody could pull a training program out of a magazine, but hiring a coach is a different universe, right? If I come to the underground and I hire Zach, I'm hiring a mentor to teach me, to educate me, to motivate me, to keep me accountable, right? No,
Yeah.
no, no, ripping a workout out of Flex magazine, that I'm showing my age right there. Pulling a Dorian Yates back workout
That's right.
out of a 1992 Flex magazine isn't going to get me Dorian Yates back. You know what I mean? And like, but hiring a Mike Menser,
Dorian
that's a
Yates
different.
hired Mike Menser. I'm sure he
That
didn't even, who knows if he even paid him. But the point being is,
yes,
um, coaches are what, and I tell people, like, hey, certain football teams kind of always win, certain are always in the middle, and others are low. Well, it's a level playing field. They all have a football, they all have a football field, they all have a weight room. I said, so it's the same stuff and equipment. What's the difference? How it's done.
yeah,
Um, I've said it in wrestling. Look, everybody knows a double leg takedown, but it's how you do it. How are you coached to do it? Who are your training partners that push you to get better and faster?
right,
And these things parallel and then could be inserted in any area of life that you want. And those 5 F's that you mentioned that our boy Jay Ferrugia came up with, that is, the power is having the skin in the game, being accountable to somebody.
yeah,
So I'm in a business group right now with Kip Folks. He's was the co-founder of Under Armour. And I was like, oh, I think I'm going to move the gym, better location. He's like, I don't think it's a location. He's like, before you even get to do this, he's like, why don't you focus on doubling the income of your gym? And then I start thinking to myself, oh man, he put it on me. If I
hmm
see Kip in person, at
he's
Winter
gonna ask you if you
Strong,
did it.
and
Yeah,
he asks me, am I going to be like a bum? And it's like, I didn't want it. He is,
yes,
I mean, talk about the most, like, he's so blue collar, and he'll just be like, Zach, like, get away from me, man. I told you what to do and you're not doing it. And
yes,
simply him telling me that changed the way I looked at, we had this conversation, changed the way I looked at what's going to happen during the day at my gym,
yep.
opportunities I'm giving my coaches and interns. And now I'm seeing the gym grow because I'm accountable to somebody, and I don't want to let that person down.
And he
And
forced you to focus on it though, right? Because maybe you just
correct.
you had fractured focus on a lot of other stuff because you're busy, you got kids, you're busy with a lot of things.
100%.
But he's like, hey man, no, no, no. He gave you a bullseye a focal point, and that's what great coaches do. It's like, no, dude, like this is what you need to do. You got to stop being distracted and do
Yes.
that. get this thing. And again, I talked to a bunch of gym owners. One of the points that I made in the email that I sent out was that, I spoke to, dozens of gym owners over the 2 days at Summer Strong, right? And a lot of them, they were there to learn strength and conditioning. They're there to be part of the Sorinex thing. And like most gym owners, they started a business without any real business experience, right? They have all the certifications in the world. I met guys that were like, ex-collegiate strength
which is
coaches and so
crazy.
forth like
That
that.
was not me. I
No,
was I was immediately invested in the business side of
me
things.
too.
So I'm always shocked because there's so much information out. I tell coaches when I wanted business information, I had to pay to go on a private forum to access Mike Boyle or
Yes.
Alan Cosgrove. If I wanted marketing information, early 2000s, it was not given for free.
No.
There was no
No. Now
podcast.
there's so much stuff out there. It's like
You could, and
ridiculous.
and I'm telling you, that's why people don't value it. There's no
Yeah.
skin in the game.
That there might be too much. Maybe it's information
There's too
overload
much.
too, right? They don't know because like yesterday I had a call with one of our consulting clients, and he's trying to level up his marketing skill, and he just didn't even know where to begin. He's like, do you have a couple book recommendations? I said, yeah, I'll sift through,
Yes.
10 or 15 of my books and pick out the five best ones that I think would be the most
Nice.
pertinent to you, right? And because there's lots of them, so I think a lot of people they don't know what to read, so they don't read, or they don't read any of them, right? And I think like with gym owners, there is this unfortunate misconception um that if I'm just a great coach and I get great results, that I'm automatically going to have a great business. And
Not the
that's not
case.
true. That'll get you to a certain level. Like I always say, like raw energy, ability, and just badassery got Varsity House to, let's call it a couple $100,000 a year, right? And we could have stayed at, let's call it, if I was by myself or it's just me and Dan, you get that business to like 300,000-400,000 and it'll hover there, right? To get to a million, 1.5, 2 million, right? You have to have great business sense and great, you have to have great marketing, sales processes, customer service. The product's got to be unbelievable, right? Because
You
at
have
that
to go
point,
from high school mindset to
yes,
NFL mindset.
correct, right? And that took a tremendous amount of work, right? On the business side. And right now I'm in a business group that has 10 other gyms in it that are all seven-figure gyms, and we are not the most profitable and the biggest revenue generating gym in that group, right? And that's on purpose. Dan and I would have left if we were, right? Because I don't want to be the richest gym and the biggest gym
Yeah.
in the group. I want to, and we're actually like, I'm in my head, I'm like, we got to start looking for the next group because I want to be in the gym. I want to be in the group that's got guys that are doing 10, 15, 20 million a year, right?
Oh
I,
damn.
I want to be in a gym that I want to be in a room where somebody's got 20 gyms, 30 gyms. And
That
and maybe not even in gyms, right? It's like I own a multi-million dollar, retail chain or whatever it might be, right? So that's kind of the mindset. And so the gym owners think that I'm just going to be a great coach, and they don't have the business sense. And then they wonder, why am I not struggling? Well, what does your marketing look like? And they're like, oh, I get word of mouth. I was like, that's not marketing. That's waiting for other people to build your business. It's part
Yeah.
of it, but
You
it's
know what
not.
this reminds me of? And I gotta close it out on this joke because I
Go
gotta
ahead. Yeah.
cut out and you're
Family
taking a little
time.
vacay. When I was in strategic coach teaches the same things, but there's three different groups according to the income level.
Mm,
And Dan Sullivan said it's because the conversations in the room are different. So I was in the middle tier level, and one of the guys from the top tier missed one of his meetings and came to the middle tier level. The conversation I had with him was very different than the conversation that was going on in
yeah.
the your income group. And I still remember it. And it was December. So it was like a month after Hurricane Sandy, which I think was 2011,
Mm,
2012, something
yeah.
like that.
20. Yeah.
So here we go, 10, 11, 12 years later. I'm remembering that conversation about what he did. He removed an aspect of his business, and he actually removed a complete business. So he, instead of two aspects, he had one. He focused and doubled his income. And he was like, I don't even know what I actually do anymore. He's like, because I have people that do everything, people that answer the phones. He had a snow removal business. He
Yeah.
sold
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
landscaping company. He's like, somebody handles the trucks. I have the drivers. He's like, I don't even sell the contracts to, the buildings and the properties that we are in charge of.
Yes.
He just kept removing himself. That was the thing about strategic coaches.
I
Like,
like that idea. I like that.
like, so to me, that's when people ask me the question of like growing, I have this system of how we're growing the gym and doing things during the day. But now my focus is on that online, and being at Sorinex, got to meet up with my buddy Josh from Train Heroic. We
Yeah.
had a powerful
Good
conversation.
dude.
Now we're on another path. That wouldn't have happened if I stayed home and I'm busy and this and that. So what's like
Yeah.
the
And
closing
well, I
theme
mean,
of this
closing
show?
theme for me is, my big takeaway is, there's just amazing power in connection, and look, man, like, we were not close friends 5 years ago, and we've really had a connection. I consider you a friend. We've traveled together now a few times, and
Yep.
had a great time with our brocation.
Such a
And I
great
think like
time.
all those things, like, again, I think, one of the guys said it during Summer Strong. I get to I'm friends with my heroes, and I remember looking
Yeah.
up to Zach and watching Zach, and we're a similar age. Although I'm the little bit younger felt version, right?
Very
And
true.
but I mean, Zach was a parallel, and I remember like it was Zach and Joe D and us in our area in the same time, and it was like I was reading all his stuff, and you were always putting out tons of stuff, and I was like, dude, this guy's like, how does he find time to write all this shit? Like, I'm trying to grow a goddamn business, and he's
Yes.
book after book after book, and I'm like, Christ, right? And
I
so,
I look back, the energy was through the roof. Yeah, as you get older.
so my big takeaway
Yeah,
is that, if you really want to make real connections and change your life, you have to shake people's hands. You have to meet them in person.
that's
Sitting
what
on
we did.
Zooms, that's what we did.
We
Exactly.
exchanged messages through social and
Yep.
texting, and then
We just came down. Yeah, we came down.
you guys
We
came
came down to
down.
the gym and trained, and
We hit it off. We of course spoke about business, and it wouldn't have happened if we eventually said, "Listen, I'm busy, you're busy. Let's just get together in person."
yeah.
And it's been great. You're right. We could get comfort is a cage.
Yes, I love that. Comfort is a cage. So
Colonel
get out
Nye.
there, Sorinex, shout out to Bert, Pops, and the entire team at Sorinex. They put on an amazing event. I appreciate their hospitality,
Yeah.
friendship, and the
Summer
people.
Strong 16.
Great
I think
event.
I've been to I missed 2 years in a row of them because I was like, I don't want to leave my son's baseball, daughter's tennis, but I come home a better man, better father, better husband. So I don't leave just to disappear. It makes me
Well,
better. So I think I've
it's
been
it's your
to
duty, right? It's your duty as the
correct.
provider and presider of
Yes.
your tribe, your family, to improve yourself. And part of that, like, I loved, I know we'll keep it short, but like Michael Esser's idea, I believe he called it the myogi, which was that that mindset of having this adventure. Look, for some people, going to Summer Strong every year could be your myogi. That's like I
Yes.
got that's how I'm going to go better myself. It's my adventure. Dan and I have had so many adventures together that my point is that connection, that in-person connection. Get on a plane,
Yeah.
go somewhere, learn something, do something different, get up in front of a room and speak, even though you're terrified. Get up in front, go
It's
lift in front of a
exhilarating.
people that are stronger than you and be like, oh
Oh
man,
yeah.
like these guys are deadlifting 800 pounds and here I am with my 350-pound deadlift. Who gives a shit? Get in there and go.
That's
And
right. You are out there competing. I tell them, like, hey, you're out there. You're the man in the arena. You're the woman in the arena.
yes,
You must keep doing that. It sharpens your sword.
for sure. So I'm going to sharpen my kitchen knives for a weekend of barbecue
Good
with
for
my
you,
family.
brother.
And
Yes.
I'll catch you next week, Zach. Thanks again. I love you, brother.
Thank you,
Appreciate the
guys.
time and energy.
Later, my bro.
See you,
Peace.
man.